I haven't had communication with Banks for a long period of time, right?
He couldn't even tell you, like, at any point when you speak to him what the problem is. I put him, like, where I put Marquise.
You and Banks are not hanging out at the strip club.
50 Cent takes some responsibility for Lloyd Banks for toting Ayo.
What responsibility? Like a parent?
You're the leader.
What responsibility am I taking for him? Like, explain to me.
That you didn't encourage them to be independent
Nah,
sooner.
that's not true.
Welcome back to Fame Drop. Lloyd Banks is finally breaking his silence on what really went down between him and 50 Cent, and he's not holding anything back. For years, we only got one side of the story, but now Banks is stepping up to call out the lies, the shady disrespect, and how 50's been twisting the truth to fit his own version of the past. Back when G-Unit exploded onto the scene, it was a straight-up takeover. 50 Cent was the face, no doubt, but Banks, he brought the heat. His bars, his voice, the way he painted pictures with his words, he gave G-Unit its backbone. They moved like brothers, or at least that's what it looked like. But once the fame and money came flooding in, the energy changed real quick. Out of nowhere, 50 started taking public shots at Banks. In interview after interview, he called him lazy, said he didn't want it bad enough. He even clowned him in his book, making it sound like Banks just quit on himself.
Lloyd tattooed on his arm. He literally wears his laziness on his sleeve. He's always projected an unhelpful mixture of being both introverted and cocky at the same time.
This is something. Wait till they see Lloyd Banks.
But Banks, he stayed low. No online rants, no interviews, just silence until now. In a recent sit-down, Banks finally opened up, and he's done letting 50 run the story. He made it clear, when life hit hard, 50 was nowhere to be found. That whole lazy label? Banks says it's not just false, it's cold, real cold. Because during that time, he wasn't slacking. He was dealing with grief. His pops had passed away, and he was going through it. Instead of a phone call or support, he got humiliated.
Banks' temperament was definitely a little crazy. I'm not saying anything here that I haven't said to Banks directly. Another time I sat down with him, just when IG was starting to pop off, and tried to drop this gem on him. You gotta get on Instagram, I encouraged him. You can be a little awkward in person, so this is actually a better way for you to communicate with people. Nah, I don't want to do it, he said. Why not? You can literally put punchlines under your pictures, make some new fans. Nah, that's corny, he told me. When Banks made that comment to me, I realized he had gone as far as he can go. In fact, my exact thought was, this is someone I can't invest another minute or dollar in.
50 didn't just make one comment and keep it moving. He went on a full-on campaign, interviews, books, memes, all painting Banks as someone who gave up. But in reality, Banks was grinding, just not in the way 50 expected. He wasn't chasing clout, he was finding his own way. Of course, 50 being who he is, didn't take that lightly. As soon as Banks spoke up, 50 clapped back fast, tossing more shade. So now the question is, what really tore them apart? How did this crew that once ran the game get so twisted? And who's being real, Lloyd or 50? Let's rewind a bit. For years, Banks held it down in silence. No clapbacks, no sneak disses. But recently, 50 brought his name up out of nowhere, again. While backstage on tour, 50 dropped a clip on Instagram throwing shade at both Banks and Young Buck, talking slick about how they didn't blow up like he did. See, that right there is the difference between these two.
He's a very good lyricist. Among what are known as the punchline rappers who will end their bars with a funny or tongue-in-cheek line, Banks like to call himself the PLK, or Punchline King. I don't know if he's the king, but I'll give it to him that he's in the conversation. He is not, however, a great live performer, stylish dresser, or a domineering personality. So if he doesn't check those three boxes, how is he going to get bigger and become the star in real life he is in his head?
Banks doesn't live on Instagram. He doesn't take cheap shots in interviews. He moves quiet. But when he was finally asked about 50 during a rare interview, Banks let it out. All the built-up truth, years in the making. He wasn't trying to be dramatic. He was clearing his name. He explained that during the time 50 was calling him unmotivated, he was dealing with deep personal pain. His father had just died. He was grieving. He needed time, not judgment. But instead of getting love from someone he once called a brother, he got thrown under the bus again and again, publicly, loudly, cruelly.
I haven't had communication with Banks for a long period of time, right?
He couldn't even tell you, like, at any point when you speak to him what the problem is. I put him, like, where I put Marquise.
You and Banks are not hanging out at the strip club.
No, he goes though.
But you don't go.
No, I don't see me there. We went to Atlantic City. We was in it was a showcase. They expect a show to have
Performance.
tonight. Yeah, like, yeah, we will see you at the show tonight. And I go, oh, they expecting a show. Like, I was like, yo, call all of them, tell them to come here. When I asked Banks, like, when you go to perform your shows, you don't do this song? Like, this is the hardest record on your. And he's like, why? Cause you won? I looked at it and I was like, trying to understand where he was coming from. He had been on my last record. He's like, I ain't been on your record, this and that. And I was like, so what? You don't have to be on none of my records. Like, me being on your records is the favor. I put you on a record with Eminem on my first album, fool. Don't nobody even know you. We were anticipating success, not as much success as we actually had. Mm-hmm. And it would have been sufficient if we had half the success.
And even though 50 has admitted that Banks has serious skills with the pen, he still says Banks just doesn't have the star power or the grind to make it big. That's a hard pill. But is it the truth or just another jab? But according to Banks, 50 Cent was never really there when it counted. Not during the darkest days. Not when the pain hit hardest. And that cut deeper than any diss track ever could. Banks says forget all the noise. What hurt the most was being left hanging by someone he once saw as family. And that whole he fell off talk? Banks shut that down fast. Since 2021, he's dropped 3 full albums, the course of the Inevitable series. No radio hits, no big label machine, just straight bars and consistency. He never stopped spitting, he just stepped away from the industry circus. And that's where the real problem started.
Banks was around 14 years old when Biggie and Pac were both popping. So that makes sense that they still resonate with him so deeply. I can relate. I still love the music from when I was that age too. The difference is I haven't patterned my career after KRS-One and Kool G Rap. What would be the point of that? They were both incredible in their moment. But I've always been concerned about creating my own moment rather than copying theirs. Years ago, I told Banks to film a video of his life and post it on YouTube. Introduce people to his lifestyle. Let the camera follow him around for a while and see how he moves. Maybe something he says or does will create a spark, go viral, and then he'll have some heat around him again. What I didn't want him to do was sit there writing punchline after punchline and then grow resentful when no one seemed to care about his mixtapes anymore. They say insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Before adding Biggie and Pac didn't do that. They're dead, my man, I told him. They died before this stuff was even invented. And how do you know they wouldn't be posted on IG if they were alive? It was a line of thinking that really blew my mind. It suggested that if Tupac was alive, he'd still be wearing leather vests and red bandanas tied around his head, sending girls his beeper number. Or that Biggie would still be wearing Coochie sweaters and playing Mortal Kombat 2 every night. In Banks' case, a lot of his failure to grow as an artist is connected to his emotional composition. Banks grew up in the same neighborhood as me, but was never a part of it in the same way. I actually hustled with his father. Banks was more content staying on his porch and watching the world from there. There's nothing wrong with that, but it underscored a particular aspect of his personality. Banks wanted things to come to him, as opposed to going out and getting them for himself. That's not me trying to assassinate his character. The guy has Lazy Lloyd tattooed on his arm. He literally wears his laziness on his sleeve. He's always projected an unhelpful mixture of being both introverted and cocky at the same time. The kind of person most comfortable being a big fish in a small pond. If Banks was hanging out in the studio with a bunch of unknown MCs, he'd be very confident. He'd enjoy being the center of attention. But if I suddenly showed up, he'd feel like he got demoted. He'd be bitter. He didn't feel like the center of attention anymore. I get it. I can take up a lot of the air in the room. The problem is that he'd never fight to get some of that oxygen back, which is exactly what a star is supposed to do. I believe a true star must possess 4 fundamental abilities: create great material, be a high-energy live performer, have a unique appearance, and possess a strong personality. Tupac had all 4. So does Mary J. Blige. Chris Brown, too. If I'm being honest in evaluating Banks, he possesses maybe one of those qualities.
See, Banks was never built for the flashy spotlight life 50 wanted from him. He wasn't out here chasing TikTok moments or starting beef for clicks. He's not about all that attention-seeking energy. Banks is built different. He's a pure MC, a real lyricist who cares more about the pen than the fame. But in 50's world, that don't fly. If you're not adding value to the empire, you're dead weight. And Banks wasn't trying to play that role anymore. He wasn't showing up just to be another soldier in 50's army. He was doing his own thing on his own terms. Now, just so it's clear, this wasn't some random industry link-up. This goes way back. 50, Banks, and Tony Yayo all came out of South Jamaica, Queens. They weren't just rap partners. They were boys from the block trying to make it out. So when 50 blew the doors open with Get Rich or Die Trying, he brought the team with him. G-Unit wasn't just a crew, it was a movement. a whole lifestyle. And in that movement, Banks stood tall. He wasn't just background noise. His bars were elite. While 50 had the hooks and charisma, Banks brought the grit, that cold voice, that slick wordplay. It gave the music serious weight. His mixtape game was legendary. Money in the Bank, Cold Corner, all that fire that fans still talk about today. Then in 2004, he dropped The Hunger for More and went platinum in under a month. On Fire, Karma, I'm So Fly, classics. Banks wasn't just eating off the G-Unit brand, he was helping build it. His sound helped define what G-Unit even was. Even 50 had to give him props back then, calling Banks one of the coldest lyricists in the whole clique. But fame changes everything. As time passed, the G-Unit machine started glitching. Buck got the boot. Game went solo and wild. The empire wasn't running the same. And Banks? He started fading into the background. Not loud, not dramatic, just slipping away. Banks was never the wild, spotlight-hungry type. But after a while, he was almost invisible. And that silence? It spoke volumes. No public explosions, no beef, just a growing distance you couldn't ignore.
But when it came to the actual room, we talked about, I think I irritated him earlier playing with the entourage. Yeah. With MO and them, like, cause I look.
Banks, is that true?
G-Unit was no longer moving like a unit, and the bond between 50 and Banks, it was clearly cracked. The energy had shifted, that brotherhood feel, gone. The empire they built together was starting to crumble, and Banks was quietly stepping off the battlefield. The G-Unit crew used to move like a real team, but somewhere along the way, that bond broke down. Suddenly, it didn't feel like a movement anymore. It was just a bunch of solo artists sharing the same name. And according to 50, the damage ran so deep, there's no chance of a real G-Unit comeback. What really sparked it off? Banks started fading out. No more interviews, no red carpet appearances. He wasn't showing up to 50's events. And to fans, it seemed like he just didn't care. But behind the scenes, it wasn't that simple. While Banks was laying low, 50 kept going public, throwing slick shade, keeping that lazy label alive.
I'd rather be robbed at gunpoint than be betrayed. Not that I suggest you try it. At least getting robbed is exciting. There's an undeniable rush when somebody pulls out their piece and growls, "Get on the fucking floor." Once it's over, provided you don't get shot, you can go tell your friends, "Yo, they just stuck me up." Your pockets might be lighter, but you'll be much stronger overall, having survived the experience. Getting betrayed is different. You don't get a great war story out of it. I've never heard anyone get hyped telling their friends, "Yo, you won't believe this, but I just got backstabbed by my mans." There are no stripes earned for that shit. When you open yourself up to someone, either financially or emotionally, and they go left on you, it's a different kind of pain, even more dramatic than a stick-up kid physically taking something from you. Like Malcolm X said, to me, the thing that is worse than death is betrayal. You see, I can conceive death, but I could not conceive betrayal.
He told interviewers he gave Banks every opportunity, but Banks just didn't want it bad enough. Said he had the skills but no hustle. Claimed he didn't evolve, didn't understand the business side of music, and that, in 50's eyes, was a problem. He even criticized Banks for not jumping on social media, but that's just never been Banks's lane. He's always been quiet, private, focused. He's the type who works in silence, not the one chasing followers or jumping on every trend. To a lot of fans, that made him real, but to 50, that made him a liability. Then came the book, Hustle Harder, Hustle Smarter, and 50 did not hold back. He took it there, called out Banks and Yayo by name, said they were stuck in the past, refusing to grow. He painted Banks as someone who had all the tools to win, but stayed too comfortable and let the moment pass him by. It wasn't just shade, it was a clear break.
Because I find betrayal so painful, I put incredible thought and consideration into the people who surround me. As I detailed in this chapter, when I was first coming up, I made a mistake of confusing loyalty and location. It's a miscalculation a lot of people make. One, to believe that just because someone is from the same streets as you, that they're gonna have your back forever. I learned the hard way that that's not the case. I think everyone's a little afraid of being too trustful, but I'm definitely worse than most. In my life, I feel like I've been betrayed by people I deserve better from. People I've given money to, opportunities to, love to, even life to. Because of that, for a long time, the only thing I had faith in was money. I only trusted the paper that says, "In God we trust." This is one of the reasons the theme of betrayal is so prominent in my show Power. It's an issue that's always on my mind, so much so that I even called the last season The Final Betrayal.
That book was the first time 50 drew a real line between himself and Banks. Banks didn't blast back publicly, but fans believe he spoke on it through his track Stranger Things, dropping bars that felt real personal. That's where it all splits. 50 and Banks don't even agree on what success means. For Banks, he's in a good place. He makes music, he provides for his family, he's at peace. Being super famous, that doesn't equal success to him. And yeah, he has admitted to being laid back. He even went as far as tattooing Lazy Lloyd on himself. He owned it. But being laid back doesn't mean he's not grinding. He's not out here begging for attention or clout. He just doesn't want all the mess that comes with fame. He'd rather let the music talk. But to 50, that mindset is the same as giving up. And to someone like 50, loyalty and hustle are everything.
Actually, your son wants to sit down with you.
No, he doesn't. See, Charlamagne, you would call me. You don't call TMZ to say you want to sit down. Think about it, man. You know, you want some attention. And it's okay, you can have as much of that as you want. You know, it's just like he's been trained to believe what you see him say in that interview, that what he was saying, he's been trained to believe that for a long time, bro. Like, you don't just wake up and say, oh, well, I don't believe what I've been believing forever.
But never be open to it?
No, I don't think the relationship works. Look, for a long time, Charlamagne, I went running behind him. I went places that he went, and he left the place.
In fact, loyalty is so serious to 50, he's cut off people who were once like blood to him. In his own words, he said he'd rather be held at gunpoint than betrayed. He explained that he rides hard for his circle, gives everything, but the second someone crosses the line, that's it. No second chances. And this doesn't just apply to Lloyd Banks. Just look at how things went down with his own son, Marquise. When 50 felt like his son wasn't loyal, he cut him off. No hesitation, no turning back. If he can do that to family, what do you think happens to friends?
If you don't do it, like if I don't give him something that he wanted murder, then he's gonna go back to doing what we did. You remember saying that to me?
I don't remember.
You don't remember saying that? Yeah, tell him you be telling Vlad all kind of
I don't want to get into all that.
My look better than Vlad. You think you tell me the thing? I know the my nice.
He don't even look like the same dude to me
nice
on
for them
Vlad.
stories.
Mark, this is real shit coming out.
Tony Yayo, G-Unit Day 1, 50's right hand for years. Even he wasn't safe. When whispers of disloyalty popped up, real or not, 50 called him out publicly. That's just how he moves. Same with Young Buck. Buck was key to G-Unit's rise in the early 2000s, but once 50 smelled disloyalty, it was over. Buck got kicked out, and the whole thing played out in front of the world. Even The Game, who was once the hottest name under the G-Unit banner, got the same treatment. That fallout was legendary and ugly. So when 50 saw a photo of Lloyd Banks and Game back together, that was it. Final straw. He didn't stay quiet either. 50 posted, then deleted a message that said, "What do you see when you look at this picture? I see confusion. I'm not sure if it's just me. I'm a Cancer-ish. Don't get old with me. I never asked for trouble, but I really don't have a problem with it. I'm different. The question isn't how I feel about it, but how does Lloyd Mack feel about it?"
I think that's over. I think that's done. But
What do you mean?
I think his career is finished. You know what I'm saying? And it's because, like, his temperament, he won't actually get himself, like, right now he's in jail, but knowing who he is from the entire time that he's been around, I don't think he has what it takes to recover from, you know, like, it takes discipline at that point, because it's when people begin to want to give you resistance. Hip-hop culture is out with the old and with the new.
Some ish is just better off left alone. One post, one photo, one reminder. 50 doesn't do second chances, not with friends, not with family, not with anybody. If you're feeling the heat from this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment with your thoughts. Whose side are you on, Lloyd Banks or 50 Cent? Let's get into it below.